stay on this plutocrat point. I mean, now we know this guy came in attacking public unions, and he was good on equality. We're in a pretty blue
He's
state.
great on guns, great on equality, but those are issues that don't upset any of his rich friends in Wall Street. In fact, a lot of them make Paul Singer, big hedge fund guy, has a gay brother and gave a lot of money to that effort because he wants his brother to have the equality that he doesn't want anybody who's working class to have.
So just to give folks an idea, okay, there's also a tax plan that was passed in this budget, and understand when we say more than in most circumstances, okay, Governor Cuomo really has a tremendous control over what happens in this state. He promoted essentially the cause of the Republicans in this state for getting a power sharing a deal in the state Senate. Democrats were poised to win both houses. He basically said, not only am I not going to get involved, he's been undermining a Democratic state takeover of the state Senate.
Because the Democrats controlled the Senate, and I think he probably behind the scenes helped engineer some of those guys leaving and forming an independent caucus. Because the truth is, if they had control, he'd be forced to veto things.
Exactly.
Now he doesn't have to.
That's exactly right. And this puts him in sort of both a power brokering position and in a position of not having to actually stand up against those policies that a democratically controlled state house would present and put on his desk. So he's pushed this tax freeze in this state based upon recommendations from a panel where he appointed Pataki, the head of it, or one of the people on it. It essentially, this is what it does. I mean, this is sort of a backdoor austerity program. They're going to do a cap on real estate taxes for the first year. They give, and obviously it pays a lot more to people who are making a lot more money and have a lot more expensive houses. And then what it does is it says to the municipalities, you got to cut your services going forward in a big way to maintain these tax cuts. And so it starves, it artificially provides for the budget in year one. And then in the outlying years, it causes more austerity on a local level. And I want you to just listen to what the Larry Schwartz, this is Cuomo's secretary, okay, told Tax Watch that the state, this is what he said. I would consider someone making up to $500,000 as upper middle class. I wouldn't classify them as rich. He was the deputy Westchester County executive under a guy named Andrew Cuomo. My wife and I are middle class. We make about $300,000 a year. I'm paying $12,000 in taxes in White Plains. And then he goes on to say the tax freeze is intended to help the working poor and the middle class. And of course, making $300,000 a year, he's middle class. Now, I'll tell you something. I have had years in my life where I have made $300,000, more than $300,000, back in the heydays. Living in New York City. And I can tell you, you're not middle class when you're making $300,000. I just don't care.
No.
I don't care how expensive it is in New York City. I don't care how expensive it is in Westchester. You're not middle class.
No, you may not be living in certain of the most ridiculous precincts of. I can say this as someone who grew up in New York too, and knows it quite well. There may be some places certainly that are out of your reach. New York is a very expensive city.
Definitely.
Let me finish because I don't want to stop the end there. What I'm saying is, you are far from middle class still. All right, just because there's a few buildings and a few neighborhoods and some places you can't go. Believe me. You're not middle class. You're not upper middle class. You're wealthy.
Look, you
may not understand that because you don't hang around in places with people who make a lot less money than you, but you are.
And you cannot say, look, you don't understand what it costs to live in New York City. Here's a suggestion. You don't have to live in New York City. And you're like, well, this is where my job is. Okay, now I get this dilemma. I understand that dilemma. But there are millions of people who every day commute into the city an hour and a half 2 hours so that they can live a lifestyle commensurate with the amount of money they're making. All right? There is absolutely, you have to be so deluded to believe that you are middle class by making $300,000 a year. I don't care where you live in this country. There's no possible way to define it that way. Now, understand that just 5% of New York households earn more than $227,000 in 2012. That's the highest category listed by the census. In Westchester, the median household income, the absolute middle, half earning more, half earning less, is $81,000. The idea that you are middle class by making $300,000 a year is just, you have to be so deluded. And how deluded do you have to be to say this to a newspaper?
He's just he's so full of crap. And again, look, we all have decisions to make. You pointed out your background, and you made some decisions at times to move out of the city, right? And other times you've been in the city. Because some of it was family, but some of it was cost of living for myself. And my wife and I had a decision. Once we were having children, we wanted to be near our family, and we were in Washington. We could go to New York or we could go to Cincinnati. We chose to come here because of cost of living was a big part of that. I made that decision. I didn't go around bitching about the amount of money I'm making, and the truth is I'm not quite making what Mr. Cuomo is, but I'm doing well by most people's standards. And you go where you go if you can. Again, and as you said, it's pretty simple. You get a lot of the choice of where you live is quite frankly up to you, as opposed to people who are making a lot less money who don't have that kind of a choice, who are stuck wherever they're stuck, and they're stuck with whatever job they're stuck in, and lucky to have one in the current economy and with the safety net that Mr. Cuomo has brought to New York.